Welcome to PVPN. I am your local realtor and host, Joe Alessi, and today we have the heartbeat of the high schools with band directors from Palos Verdes and Peninsula High School and special guest Dr. Bartner from USC. So let's begin. Thank you for tuning in to PVPN, your Palos Verdes Peninsula Network. And today we have an amazing panel here with the band directors from Palos Verdes High School and Peninsula High School. And then, of course, Dr. Bartner from legendary USC Trojan Marching Band. So thank you guys for coming today.
Yeah.
I'm going to have Coach Young in here too, probably in a few weeks from the football team. So we've got the Bay League football team is starting to kick in. We got preseason ending. Obviously, the marching bands, the cohesion between the football teams is a huge element for that. So what I'd like to do is just start off with a brief introduction. And Kyle, we'll start with you, please. And just tell us you've been there for about a year now. Mm-hmm. Just tell us kind of how you got into that position, how that came about, the opportunity, what it was like to go out for that job and how you got it, and your philosophy about conducting your marching band and your music department in general.
Yeah. So, hi, I'm Kyle Zozobrado, band director of Penn High School. Band director at Penn High School is actually my first job ever. I finished my teaching credential 2 years ago. Coming into Penn, the community in general has just been amazing. The kids especially have been amazing. Penn is just like a great place to teach at, and it's a good place to sort of just learn, for me especially, learn how to be a professional band director and just hone my craft and just teach the kids about music and also just about themselves through music. Mm-hmm. And it's a great time.
Yeah. Okay. Whereas Shellie from Palos Verdes, you've been 21 years that you've been at Palos Verdes High School. Actually, when the school reopened again, because it did close, where obviously everyone knows Peninsula High School was the only high school for a little while, but you've been there since that point. And just, again, tell us, how that kind of came to be. You had done a little bit of band directing before that, but not at the high school level. And just your philosophy, how you approach.
Interestingly enough, I wasn't raised in this beautiful community. I would have been very fortunate, but I grew up in Illinois, which is very different music-wise. And I'd moved out here and started teaching in Corona for a couple of years at middle school, and just knew that I was being pulled towards the beach because it's magnificent. And so I knew I wanted to be this way. And so when the job opened at PV High, I jumped on it and got it. Felt very lucky. But it was a very interesting time because the school was very small and we only had 9th and 10th graders. So it was either 9th graders who wanted to gamble on a new school when they already had an awesome option. Peninsula is such a great school. They're both different, but good schools. Or 10th graders who maybe didn't really find their niche in another school and came over. So it was an interesting mix of kids, small ensembles. Everything was just starting. But I felt really close to everyone involved, the new teachers. We did something really hard together. So it brought us together as like a faculty. And I think when I really think about the philosophy of my music program, I feel, and I'll explain this, I feel like a teacher before a musician. And I just mean I care about the kids. And we really try to work on fostering togetherness and cohesion, because I feel like we do make our art better when we're like that. So I think we work on that a lot. And I think that then the music is better when we're all closer as humans.
Yeah. So obviously, outside of having the commonality of being a band director, one thing I recognize is that you guys, when you started out, in your younger years, you all were on the horn. So you were on the saxophone, the clarinet, and then of course the trumpet. So you have that in common. Now, is that just coincidental, or does that tend to be, the section that lends itself to becoming a band director? Is that something that you find to be the case, Dr. Bartner?
That's hard to say. I was born and raised in New Jersey. I'm a Jersey boy. And then I went to the University of Michigan. I taught high school band for 7 years in Michigan, played a lot of trumpet. You need trumpet players. If you're going to have a marching band, and if you're trying to balance the section, the drummers. You always get a lot of drummers. Tubas are hard to come by. But if you need to balance the band, you need the trumpet players because they're your lead. They're your lead on the field. So I think I was the right guy for the job as a trumpet player.
Joe Alessi. I am a broker associate with Remax Estate Properties. So the beauty of our industry is consumers have choices all over the place. What they don't know when it comes to real estate is what to really look for. So things that they should think about is looking for someone that will do the little things. I will lose a deal before I allow someone to do something that's not going to benefit them. I tend to become friends with many of the people I work with. This is not a one and done type of business. This is a lifelong relationship once it starts. Beautiful. Now, I know that at the college level, football is king. And, I know that when even when you started at USC, 51 years you were there, I think you had about 50 people in the band. You grew that to 200 is my understanding. So there's still that challenge, even when you got there. It wasn't like it was the band as we know today. Yeah. But you talked about the relationship between the band and the football team being really important. Did you find that to be the same at the high school level?
That's an interesting question. I went out of my way to meet every coach and really bond. And I learned this there was a coach back in the 70s by the name of Marv Gu. Marv Gu was a defensive line coach. And he just, one day, he grabbed me by the scuff of the neck. And he said, "Bartner, I'm going to teach you how to be a band director. This is a line coach. You're going to teach me." And so, I went to practice. I watched them work as players. And consequently, I became a coach / band director. Now, do I recommend this for normal people who become band directors? I would say no. But this is a very unique, culture at USC. And obviously, I got to know John Robinson, Pete Carroll very well. But now we have Lincoln Riley, who lives in Palos Verdes, and he's doing a fabulous job. But I think the thing that's unique about the USC program is that I visualize myself as a coach. So everything we do, it relates to the football team, and we actually choreograph the game musically. Whatever happens on the field, well, we have a response, whether it's drums, whether it's tubas, whether it's ensembles. And the goal is to get the student body and the alumni to get behind the team. And it makes it a lot of fun.
Yeah. Now, I know, at your level, you guys have different challenges. Your football teams are different. Palos Verdes has had a ton of success on the field. Peninsula is trying to rebuild that program, but yet your band is 70 kids in this thing, which is pretty huge, and you've got 25. So I'm assuming there's some different challenges there, but I'm curious, what's the relationship between the band and the football team? And is it as important, say, as it is on the college level?
I was reminded when Dr. Bartner was speaking about when my school first opened, the football team was odd because it was just 9th and 10th graders. So we got smashed by everyone. It was not fun to be on the team. It was not fun to go to games. And probably 3 or 4 years in, when we had enough students to go and we had a band put together and we went, I had a football player walk up to me and say, "The band's here. We feel like a real team." And I always think about that, right. How it's just part of the show is the band being there. And I that just really, I took a lot of that to heart. So I do think it's important.
Yeah.
And I think college teams and college bands make it, their cohesion is a good role model for us.
Yeah, I agree. It's that relationship between the band and the football team and then the rest of whatever spirit squad is at the school. It's super important because it's not just about it is about the show, but it's also just this is our community and we're supporting the school as a whole in general. And for the band and the football team and the spirit squads to just come together, I feel like it's a very powerful moment for the students, just to feel like this is our school, you know? And I do believe those relationships are important.
How does it work for tryouts? Do you just basically, if you play an instrument and you want to go out, you're automatically going to be part of it? Or do you have to try out in any specific way over the summer before the school year starts? How does it work if you want to get into the band?
Yeah, so for my program, we have tryouts. They're called tryouts on the website, but honestly, they're just a chance for me to hear them. Because band is the way it is, and we have a specific type of student come into band, I try not to cut people or reject people, because the students who come to band are like people that are trying to find their niche and trying to find their place in this world, and they usually find that in band, and I've realized that as a teacher. So when people come in and they say, I want to join band, I'll be like, all right, what can you do? And sometimes they're like, I can do really cool things. And sometimes they're like, I know nothing. And I'm like, all right, we'll work with that. What are you interested in doing? And we'll sort of try to figure out what they can do. And yeah, so there is a tryout, but it's not like yes or no. It's more like, okay, where can we put you?
Right.
I want to add something to Kyle that I think, again, is unique maybe to USC, but something that can apply to high school programs is that, yes, you get music majors who are like all world, but somebody wants to be in a marching band. They always want to be in marching band, but they've never played an instrument. They might have sang in the choir, they might have played cello, they might have played keyboard, and we accept them. And what's neat is that the older guys, the guys who are sections, they end up to be their teachers.
Yeah.
So we might have a grad school trumpet player who's, all world and not necessarily in a band, but he'll be in charge of that section. He'll teach these novice guys. So what happens? Well, maybe the first year they're a reserve and they're sitting in the stands. But the second and third year they get on the field, and so that's something that you might take somebody who has very little music background and start to teach them.
And so when you go through that process too, you have 25 members, as we said. So you had mentioned to me, you have a lot of percussion, but there's maybe some elements that you would like to expand. Are you trying to recruit people from any other parts of your band, department to add to that, or how does that work for you?
I honestly, for having a small department, I have a lot of kids who take 2 or 3 music classes, and I think that's cool if they don't want to take an extra science or something. Also, I've been known to recruit people off the track because we literally have band during second period PE. So I've had a couple kids running the track, and you play drums? So we're talking, come on in. So I've absolutely every year recruited 2 or 3 right off the track.
Right. Okay, interesting. So instruments, I was just, the other day, they were talking about our brains and dendrites and how we grow as human beings over time. And it doesn't matter what age we are, but our dendrites can grow at 70,000 dendrites if you start something new, you learn something new. And instruments was one of the key things that you can do. But if you already play an instrument, what they said was you expand from that. Maybe you sculpt, maybe you do some art. And I hear that you're getting into art now that you've retired. You want to tell us a little bit about that?
I've always wanted to paint. I think I've been to every museum in the world.
Wow.
And I've been a docent, I've led tours, I've read books. But to be a painter, you need time. You need 2-3 hours just to sit there. It's the opposite of marching band. I can look at a marching band and I'm dealing with 300 people. With art, it's just me, the canvas, the paint, the brushes.
And you're not yelling at anybody.
And, oh yes, well, I get yelled at by my wife. It's just kind of a reverse thing. But it's a wonderful. So I've always had this desire. So now that I have the time, I paint, and I paint landscapes. I paint seascapes. Watercolor is my medium, and it's interesting that I've taken sounds and turned them into colors, and because there's a lot of correlation between painting and music, and it's a very creative things. The designs, the rhythm, there's all kinds of things that imply, and it's just, and I'm a firm believer in when you retire, you should get involved in the arts. It might be poetry, it might be literature, it might be architecture, it might be sculpture, it might be anything, but that's what enriches your life.
Right. And that kind of brings me to Palos Verdes Peninsula, right? And one of the other reasons that you are here, obviously a band director, but you live on the peninsula, right? The beauty of it, some brought you here when your kids were younger, right? For the schools and things like that. Are you trying to paint anything on the peninsula as far as when you're talking landscapes? Are you doing?
All the time, all the time. But
Yeah.
I moved to the peninsula in 1976. You guys weren't even born yet. But that's okay.
I was, but we won't tell anyone.
And we moved here because of the school district. I mean, it has a wonderful reputation. My kids went to Maryland High School. And I always used to bring a portion of the band up wherever my kids went to school. Dapple Gray, Prendergast over here. They ended up in Penn, but I would always, bring my band, a portion of the band, and to entertain the student body, if you will. But yes, I've painted a lot of seascapes, the cliffs, the lighthouse that's down here where the old marine land used to be.
Of course,
So it's, yes, this is a great, and during the pandemic, I used to walk up and down these cliffs. If there was a path, I would find it, and then I have my iPhone and take pictures of this and that. And then now that I'm painting, I refer to them, and it's a great place to retire. It's a great place to teach.
Yes.
It's a great place, great student body.
Well, Debbie, your daughter, helped me, was very instrumental finding my first home, which I bought in Valmont in 2000. So this is before I was a realtor, but so we have that tied too. All right, we have some stuff here. So I wanted to kind of talk about the uniforms a little bit. Obviously, USC has an iconic uniform. On the high school level, does this change very much? How do you guys decide what you're doing? Talk about the uniform a little bit. Anything that you want to tell us about it?
Yeah. So on the high school level, the uniforms have updated a lot, actually. We got new pants, which is awesome. We just need to change some of our uniform tops.
Just changing in color? Or is there a dramatic difference between, when I was a kid back in the 80s at high school, to today?
Color, not so much, because the color usually is the school colors, but it's kind of like cars. It's kind of like that. Now the look is sleek, and a lot of the uniforms have side capes or gloves with edges or something like that. Nice. So yeah.
And I would think as a band member, that's kind of something that gets you excited. It's just like playing football or whatever sport you play. You got your uniform on, right? And it's go time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. They're very warm.
Yeah.
They're way more expensive than you would believe.
Yeah.
Because probably your school district's dropping between $50,000 and $100,000. It's surprising.
Yeah.
But I liked the sports car thing. Yeah. Because it's always the little things. Like one year everyone did the sleeves out.
Yeah.
Or they did the cufflinks. Yeah. Or now they're really into asymmetrical styles. The traditional were very symmetrical. Yeah. But it changes every 5 years, but asymmetricals are in. And it kind of models the summer drum corps. Whatever is hot with those, they'll set the capes were in a couple years ago.
Yeah. Drum corps is a very big inspiration.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And we've had ours since 2006, so we'll probably do pretty soon too.
Yeah.
And do you tend to have different sections of the band in different colors? Like I noticed maybe, a darker color for a certain section and a lighter color, or are they all the same?
No, usually for for all of the members of the marching band itself, it's usually the same. The only thing that the only section of the band that does sort of change uniforms is our color guard, which is the ones that like they spin the flags and everything.
Right.
Their uniforms, they usually have one for school pride, and then they have a show uniform. So that's what they.
I noticed though, it was either the drum major or the guy who actually is kind of in charge of the drums. He had it seemed to have a different color, right?
Yeah.
Something different. Obviously, he needs to stand out for some reason.
Yeah, right. Yeah, you just reminded me. Yes, the drum majors do have like a different colored uniform. Usually, it's whiter than the other uniforms. So if the regular uniforms have more black accents, a drum major uniform would most likely have more white accents, just to sort of show the judges like this is the drum major.
So there's obviously legendary songs, obviously the fight song, the conquest song at USC. When you guys choose a piece of music, how do you go about that? Why, so let's talk about the piece maybe you're working on right now. Why'd you choose it? What are you using it for?
I think it depends on if there's competition shows.
Yeah.
And there's halftime shows. And if you're doing a halftime show, you definitely want to do something the audience is going to know and love and recognize and appeals to them. So then you choose pop tunes. The last couple of years we've done pop tunes. We've done Elton John. I really want to do a Chicago show. It's my favorite band, but I haven't found the right arrangement of something. And I think for a competition, they need to be a longer show and something a little more, not orchestral. But something that definitely has its ups and its downs. And shows a little bit more lights and darks art in the band for sure.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
What piece are you working on now?
For our competition, we are working on a pirate themed show. So that's sort of what we're going with right now. And so all of our music has some like a triplet feel. We got the takata feel, and we have like pirate melodies and stuff. And like Shellie said, it's very different compared to a halftime show because halftime show is for the audience. But for our competition show, it's for judges. So it's got more complexities in the ups and downs of music and in just the show in general. So yeah, in terms of choosing, I take a lot of different inspirations. Sometimes I'm just watching YouTube videos and I'm like, that is cool. I want to do something like that. Or I have a few websites bookmarked on Google and I'm like, all right, well, what's he got going on? Like, what's this composer writing right now? And then I'll look at the music and I'll definitely like scroll through their sample scores. Score is their big sheet music, so I can see what all the parts are. But I'll look through the sample score and I'll be like, is this achievable for the kids?
Right.
And if I feel like it's a challenge, but they can get it, I'll be like, yeah, you know what? Maybe we'll do that show.
Is there any cost involved? Because when I had the drama majors in here, the directors, they have to pay thousands of dollars to, do a play. Like that's why they don't do Grease, because they'd love to, but they can't afford it.
Oh yeah.
Is there any cost when you choose a piece of music?
Yes. All of our music, unless you pirate it. It's yeah. But marching band shows, especially for competitions, they have like a copyright, so you do have to purchase it, and then you have to show that you have purchased it.
Okay.
And if the competition show that you have has like a melody from a popular piece of music, because some shows do that. There's a band in Anaheim that is doing a competition show that has a melody from that song Clarity by Zedd. You have to pay an extra copyright just to use that in competition. So there's a huge cost involved for just picking music.
Yeah.
Competitions will double check that. They'll make you prove that you've copyrighted your stuff.
Yeah.
Now that kind of brings me to Tusk. So, you want to interject too?
Yes. At USC, we have a show committee.
Oh, wow.
And it serves a couple of purposes. Number one, it gets the kids involved in the creative part of the band. And we send out a survey, what are you listening to? Is it Taylor Swift? I mean, I don't listen to her, but that kind of thing. So you get this feedback from the students. And then I have 6 what I call teaching assistants, assistant directors And they analyze, they take all this music from the students and we listen to it and so on. And then we start putting the shows together. So it's that student involvement, which is probably something you could do if you choose on the high school level. Tusk is another, talk about being lucky. And Tusk, Mick Fleetwood actually called the band office. And I swear that he said that he heard a brass band in Germany while I was on tour, but then, it's turned into France. So it was in Europe. But anyway, he said he heard this great brass band and he wanted a brass band on his next recording. So, it took me about 5 seconds to say, we're in, count on us. So we went into a studio in Santa Monica, and Lindsey Buckingham, the guitarist, vocalist, he had, and they don't read music, by the way, which is kind of interesting, but they're brilliant. Anyway, Lindsey had this tune, and he played this tune, and I was with my arranger, Tony Fox, and my percussion instructor, Paul Brochet, and we listened to this tune, and we're going, well, how can we take a large ensemble and put it together with 5 musicians? And we basically made an arrangement. And it's interesting, there's a drum solo in the middle of it, and Mick never played the same solo twice.
Yeah, he's
so
a crazy
here you
guy.
got a 30-man drum section, and how do we know that we're going to end up at the same time so the band can come in? So we kind of, Mick became a good friend, and so we kind of taught him how to at least do 8 bars of 4, and so that we ended up at the same time. But anyway, the next step, we went into Dodger Stadium, and they had made a track, and we had practiced our arrangement. So now we're in the outfield of Dodger Stadium, and we're trying to get the band lined up with their track. And Mick saved it because he was, he was right. I'm looking at the music conducting. He was right in front of me, and he's like I had a set in front of him, and he was keeping time for me. So that all, that worked. Stevie Nicks, who really has no part on this tune, so she was twirling the baton.
Yes.
She was a high school twirler.
Yeah.
So it was.
Yeah, she was
I'm looking
amazing.
around and, oh, that's kind of cool. Would you like to come do a halftime show? And but anyway, so it's now in the middle of football. So it was a great gig, and I'm, said, well, yeah, it was nice, and we got a nice donation, and I figure it's over. So now I'm driving to school one day during football season, and the disc jockey goes, and now here's the latest hit by Fleetwood Mac featuring the Trojan Marching Band. And I'm going like, whoa. I guess this was more important than I thought it was. And the tune went to number 4 on the charts, and it was the title of the album, the Tusk album, which went platinum. And the end of the story was that now in December after the season, Mick brought the group and the Trojan Marching Band together in a big studio. And it was like the battle of the bands. We obviously lost, but who cared? I mean, who cared? They played all their hits, and we're playing our fight song and Heartbreaker and Kids on our book of tunes.
Yeah.
And this is going back and forth, and I'm going like, what a great experience for these kids. They'll never forget this moment. I mean, I'll never forget it. And it was just, that was like the climax of the whole Tusk.
And weaving into choosing music, what I heard you say before is you were surprised that became a song you would play as much as you ended up playing it at these games, right?
Yeah.
You were surprised by that.
right? Again, again, it goes back to locking it in with a football team.
Mm-hmm.
That Tusk has become like a fight song.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll play it at the end. It always sounds better when we win. If we don't win, it doesn't sound good. But if we don't play it, the student body starts yelling at us to play the tune. And then Kids Aren't All Right was written by Dexter Holland, who went to school at USC. And so there was a USC connection, and it's wonderful tune. Heartbreaker is a Pat Benatar chart, and it features the trumpets. I, being a trumpet player, well, we got to do this chart. So all these tunes, and the first rock chart that we played was Frankenstein by Edgar Winter. And this is back in 1973. And it's funny, it's the 50th anniversary of our first trip to Notre Dame. And we played that tune featuring our USC song girls. And the crowd didn't know what to do. They've never heard a rock chart on the field, and they never saw girls with short skirts and, pretty hair and dancing to the band. So this was a great moment. And we got a standing ovation, so they must have liked it.
So one thing we've talked about with the drama department as well is band, there's no score, right? It's not like you come away at the end of the day and it's 10-6, right? So when you guys have finished, say, your halftime shows, your days, whatever it is, how are you gauging success? When you go in, what are you looking for? And when you finish up, how are you gauging success versus, since you can't have a win and loss? What do you look for?
I think it's long term. I love to see my student leaders develop.
Yeah.
Like the kids that are kind of quiet and sit on the edge of the circle and just listen. I like the year that I see them, junior and senior, become leaders and feel more comfortable in their own skin, communicating with the band and speaking out their ideas and offering their suggestions for songs. I think it's like that. And I think just days when they're happy.
Yeah.
Because I feel like it's such a great atmosphere and climate for kids to grow, and it's healthy. They're healthy relationships. They're good to each other. They're nice friends.
Yeah.
It's a safe space.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think as I see that, the kids be more comfortable because of the safe space and because of the people they're working with that are comfortable and they're malleable and they're easy to work with. I think that's successful.
Okay.
That's totally right. Yeah, I got into this profession because I wanted to teach people. And when I see the kids sort of find their friends, they find themselves. And like, we're fortunate enough to see them for multiple years. We're not just a one and done class. We're like if we're lucky, they go through the program for 4 years. So you get to see the growth from freshman year to senior year, and seeing that growth and seeing the kid just come into themselves and just like discover who they are and become more comfortable with who they are. That's when I feel like it's successful. When the program helps a student find themselves. Mm-hmm. That's when I feel like that's my success.
Mm-hmm. You want to add to that?
I think that's very valid. Two things come to mind. Right, the competition. It's like when we go up against the Stanford band. So there's the Stanford band is what it is.
Yeah.
I mean, it's totally student run, which I admire, but there is some of that. UCLA has a very fine band. Mm-hmm. But just our football teams are competitive. Well, the bands, they're competitive too. Nobody's keeping score or anything like that, but you always want your best show against UCLA. It's mm-hmm. just, they're the crosstown rival.
Right.
When the band hits the home run, it's when the crowd gets involved.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, we have, I would say, 75, 80% non-music majors in the band. And these guys go on to become doctors and lawyers, and hopefully that discipline that they've gotten on the field helps them further their future careers. But when you really feel good is when you get that crowd response, because people are liking it and they're getting into the show, and they might even applaud and cheer. And so I think the more crowd involvement that you get, during your show, the more successful it is.
So let's go back to that. Speaking of, UCLA, USC. So when you guys play each other on the football field, what's that like between the two bands and so forth? What takes place?
It's more competitive for the kids. Like the kids are like, all right, we're gonna beat them in sound, in music, and I'm like, okay, that's cool. Let's just try to sound the best that we can sound, But yeah, so it's all lighthearted competition. They'll definitely say things like that, but they're like, yeah, but they're really cool, and I'm like, they really are cool. Like, but yeah, like whenever last year when we came over to your field, the kids were really trying to outblow you guys in sound. And I was like, okay, guys, watch your chops, watch your lips. You're going to be tired by the end of this. Like, no, we got to do this. So yeah, there's always that light, friendly competition, especially because we're from their rival schools. Right. And it's always a fun time.
Healthy competition is good for you. It makes you grow. It pushes you a little bit. But I also feel on the flip side, the kids most of them all went to middle school together.
Yeah, right. They know each other.
They know each other. So they will all rush over to talk to each other.
Yeah,
they're very
that's
social.
Yeah.
Like they've loved each other for a long time.
Yeah.
So there's also that friendship.
That's my favorite part. Yeah. My favorite part is when after the game we hang out afterwards. Yeah. And then we just see them talk and they're like, yo, remember that time in that one class? I'm like, nice. That's cool.
Yeah. All right, well, I'm going to end this. So I'm going to make a comment I'm going to weave in and give a shout out to Kevin Moen, because back in 1979, he went to Rolling Hills High School prior to that as at Titan. But in 1979, he was at Cal, and Cal was playing Stanford. And everybody knows he scored that touchdown where he runs over the band guy in the end zone. He actually just had a statue put out in front of the stadium this year of him holding the ball. That's how memorable that is. And crazy, and just how things just happened like that. Does anyone have a great story they'd like to end this with? Something that happened on the field or happened in the band that is, just a blooper, so to speak, or something interesting?
The year before me, they did a competition season, and the solo trumpet player for both of the competitions that they went to, he sort of messed up the solo. So why it's really funny is that last year, he's graduated now, but last year, anytime someone gets a chance, they'll play that solo at him, sort of as like a remember when you messed up that solo. And it's gotten to the point where freshmen who have not been to those competitions and they don't know the story, they will play the solo, even though he's graduated now. They will play the solo and I'll be like, do you even know what that's from? And they're like, no, I just heard the seniors play it. And I'm like, okay, that's cool.
Any crazy moment for you that comes to mind?
I'm trying to think. I mean, there's kind of a ton. I think during those competition shows, though, pushing equipment out and being worried about all the backdrops. One year we had mirrors on the field because we were doing a show where we thought that would be a great backdrop.
Whoa.
Gosh darn it, if those things didn't fall down at every show. And there was always we had like sandbags back there and we had parents holding them, but one of those things was going to go down at every single show. Yeah, so just a ton. But
so I'm going to weave this in. So you mentioned you're from Jersey. I'm from New York originally. Wow. And we mentioned the statue of Kevin Moen. So you had, with the Statue of Liberty being unveiled again once it was brought back to life. Right. Is there any story around that we could end this all on?
I'm going to tell you a different story.
Okay.
I do have a story about it. I have a lot of stories.
Okay.
But I'm going to go back to Notre Dame. And we played them, and they were beating us almost the whole game. So we get to the end of the game, and we're still losing. And Matt Leinart is the quarterback. And now it's 4th and forever. Time's running out. And Matt Leinart throws a pass to Dwayne Jarrett. He catches it about R30 and takes it all the way down, and he's running, and I'm on a ladder, and I'm like, run faster, because so he comes down, he gets tackled on about the 10-yard line. You have the famous Reggie Bush push. He pushes Matt Line over the goal line, and we win the game with no time left. And the moment is Pete Carroll brings over the team, and you get the feeling of, this is the Trojan family. It was a great, great moment.
Yes. Well, that was a great conversation. I really appreciate everyone being here today. And thank you so much for tuning in. Please subscribe to the channel and look forward to next month where we have Coach Young from Penn High.